When it was raining that day.
It's 5:30.
All right, it's 5:30, so we'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Christian, roll call. Roll call. Commissioner Coleman? Present. Mr. Jack? Mr. Griffin? Here. Mr. Morrissey? Commissioner Kokomo? And Laycott. I'm here. All right, first up we have public comment. Later on there'll be a public hearing for the rezoning of 8 Bacon Street, so you're welcome to speak now, but you'll have your own section later, so either way. But so if anyone wants to speak now about anything else on the agenda, but
James Edward Thomas, Hillsdale Township, Michigan, 2200 Bar Street. I just really wanted to thank the city for the way they put together the packet itself and the information shared in the agendas and packets. We really don't share that privilege in Hillsdale Township, and it really is a privilege, and it allows you guys to make the decisions, to be able to make better decisions, and us as the public to be better informed, and I just really appreciate it. Thank you.
James Benjamin Galloway. I throw the middle name in there because I have an uncle locally who's also been involved in politics. To help make the distinction, I'm not a resident of the city of Hillsdale. I do have 3 nieces in Hillsdale Community Schools and 2 nephews and a niece at Hillsdale Academy, so I have interest in the character of the community. When we talk about zoning, I think character is a strong interest of zoning and the planning commission. I also have had intimate contact with 2 facilities that have operated locally, serving the homeless population, primarily Shared Warmth and improvised facility at the thrift store, Camp Local Harbor. So I can speak with great clarity on the operational distinctions between what Shared Warmth offers and what was proposed to be offered up the hill there. While they share the same district, as zoning is concerned, the operational distinctions as proposed by one versus the other quite clearly show that Share the Warmth is strongly compatible with B3, whereas the other use case is not. I'll be happy to go in more depth on that, but I think you'll make the right decisions on that agenda. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
all right, so any other public comment? Moving to the consent agenda. We have the approval of the agenda for today, and review the agenda and approval of draft minutes from last meeting, June 17th. Any comments or a motion to approve? Second. All in favor? Aye. No communications, we'll move into the public hearing. So we'll open the public hearing for the rezoning of 8 Bacon Street.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we have a representative present, but you can come up if they're here. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't sure. Just if they have any questions for you, just.
No.
Hello.
Hi, so I guess if you could quickly summarize how this request for rezoning came about.
It's just always been a commercial building. I took it over from my lawyer, Ryan Buckland, when we realized that it wasn't, still set as residential. We looked at the college basis, we thought getting into commercial, because that's what there's commercial business and something else for commercial. We just figured we could go around the corner.
Going with the lawyer ranches on 8 East Bacon. These other 2 properties, 10 East Bacon and the alley is a different lot. Are you combining those lots in this?
Yes, they would all be combined as one. Because all 3 parcels are connected together.
Just to clarify, that would be an action done by our city assessor, not by this board. So, the combination of them
So we're simply considering whether or not to
change.
change all 3 of them.
Yes, there's only this.
And we could combine it with one.
Yeah, actually something. Yeah.
Anything else for the property owner? Thank you. Olivia, I know last meeing, we discussed I think it's 2 properties to the west. Did you get any feedback from those property owners?
I did not contact them. They would have to show interest in that. I don't think that's a smart idea per se without fully looking at the implications of that. But these 3 properties are right on the border of that district. Those are further. I mean, once we rezone, those potentially our council approves that. That could be something in the future, but right now those would be disconnected from that B2 district. So.
Okay. Anything else, or?
Move to approve.
All in favor?
Okay, so I'm just essentially going to read from my memo, but Sheriff Warrant of Hillsdale County submitted a commercial site plan review application on June 3rd of 2026, proposing a remodel and an expansion of the existing structure located at 183 West Carlton Road for their headquarters. The city department heads conducted a preliminary site plan review and feedback was provided to the applicants on June 26th. The applicant submitted a revised site plan on July 1st, of 2026, and a memo to the Planning Commission in response to that feedback was submitted by the applicants on July 6th. The revised site plan memo, their original application, and the narrative are part of the published packet, and we do have quite a few representatives from the applicant here today, if you want to call them forward.
Yeah, if you want to come forward, if you mind.
So my name is Penny Myers. I'm the director of Sheriff Warrant of Hillsdale County. And this is
I'm Rachel Johnson. I'm the president of Sheriff Warrant.
of the board. started Share the Warmth back in 2018. November 1st of 2018 was our first night of operations, and we knew within a short period of time that a temporary shelter for our community was not going to be enough. So here we are 8 years later. It's a long process. So we really desire to become a year-round operation. So that's why we're here today. And you know, over the years we've worked very hard to gain the trust of this community, and it's amazing the support that we've had. You know, we put out a call for a need, and this community has met every need along the way. So it's, you know, we just feel like it's time to move forward.
Okay, I just to get some basic facts down. I'd like to know more about difference, if any, between what you're doing now on the existing location and what you plan to do in the new location if it's approved. Now, I understand that you do overnight housing in the current location, is that right?
Right. Right now, we are open from November 1st to March 31st.
Right.
So we're winter, nighttime only emergency warming center.
Okay.
Moving forward, we would definitely like to implement more programs for people, addiction, recovery, more counseling for teaching people how to get a job, do a resume. There's just so much more that we would be able to accomplish operating year-round than just nighttime in a rented facility.
So when you say overnight, that means just they come in at night, right, and then they leave in the morning, is that it?
Correct.
And I assume that if the weather is really bad for a week or two,
Then
someone could come back.
Yes.
And it would be up to your discretion as to whether the person would be admitted or not, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And speaking of what Mr. Galloway pointed out, if you could then give us more information about the distinction between what you are planning to do at the new location, which is in addition to is it going to be overnight there too, or is it going to be, what's it going to be?
Yes, it will be overnight.
Okay.
And then we hope to add programs during the day.
Right, gotcha.
Yes.
The counseling, rehab.
Yes.
Okay. And now, how does that differ from Hope Harbor? Not what you're doing now, but what you propose to do.
I can't really answer that really because you know I don't really know what everything. I didn't have anything to do with their programs up there. I'm not sure how they operated and what they did. So, but our goal is to, get people into recovery and get them off the street.
Right, I understand that. Yeah. Okay.
Will you be, you said it is overnight and it will be overnight. In the new location, will you be assessing people for admission on a daily basis, or will they come in and then potentially go out and come back again at night? Or could they stay for 2 weeks at a time, only being admitted once?
So, that's a good question. So, the way we currently have done it for the last 8 years is we have an intake process. They come in, they go through the intake process, and then we do let them come in every night while we're open. Now we know that moving forward, our program is going to change. So I need to tell you the truth, unless Rachel really wants to speak into that. I know that we will do the programs during the day, and it will depend on each individual on how long they can stay. So in the middle of winter especially, I don't foresee us kicking them out or making them leave after 3
is the difference between where you currently are and where you're going, hopefully, is the daytime activities? Is that a big part of it?
And year round, yes. Yeah. And with the added programs that we cannot offer right now because of where we're at.
So as you currently operate, how long can somebody come and spend the night at Share the Warmth, assuming good behavior?
Currently, as long as they behave and follow the guidelines, we let them stay every night for the season.
Do they, if residents bring their possessions, do they leave, if they have anything, do they then, if they leave during the day, do they leave them at Share the Warmth?
We, in our guidelines, they are not allowed to leave their possessions during the day. They're supposed to take them with them every night. Their stuff has always been an issue, and it will continue to be an issue. But in our guidelines, and the volunteers know that they are allowed to bring in one backpack. The women can have a backpack and a purse. That is what they're allowed to bring in. Anything else, we do have an overnight storage, but they are supposed to take their stuff with them every morning. Because if they don't come back, then we have all our stuff sitting there. So yeah, we try not to make them feel like this is their home. You know, this is an emergency warning center.
So I'm familiar with the current structure. And what I'm hearing is that this is going to be year round. And so is the design to be more like a residential opportunity for these individuals until they locate housing? Or I guess my concern is that what is now overnight and short term turns into something that's long term on a continual basis, 365, 24/7.
So our hope is to always move people forward. As I stated before, Share the Warmth has been such a small operation, and it is changing. And we will set new guidelines for that. I cannot answer exactly what those guidelines will be, but it will not be 365-day, this is where you live program. We know that we cannot do that. So it's going to change.
Not sure if this is a question for you, Penny, or Olivia, but is my understanding that your operations at the Sozo Church have been allowed according to code because of that distinction of they leave every day and come back?
Well, and also because we were operating out of a church, the guidelines were different for the community because it was an extension of a church ministry. So I think that was the main difference. Is the way I understand it, is that not the way that that's how we've been able to operate the way that we do. So going forward, it's going to change. We won't have the church covering. We'll be answering to you. So, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Could you talk about, outside of the emergency shelter itself, what else you're proposing will take place in this new building with respect to offices, management, etc.?
Yeah, so the goal is that we run all our business functions for Share the Warmth out of that building during the day. And that does include expanded services, but it also includes the business aspect of Share the Warmth, right? Because we have to support our operations, and so we're not naive to the fact that we're going to have to raise money, we're going to have to support that operation, and we're going to need a business headquarters to do that. And that's where the offices fall in place, and the boardroom, and things of that nature.
Will Share the Warmth, does it have or will it have employees, or is it operating purely on a volunteer basis?
At this time, we have one employee, which is our executive director, Penny. Obviously, as we grow, we want to expand our staff, yes.
Sure. And Penny, is the plan that you would be operating out of your office would be at this new facility?
Yes.
Has your board met to discuss the structure of a year-round facility?
Yes, we've been in many discussions of this over the last probably year, and even more so within the last 3 months to prepare for the upcoming changes. We know that things need to change. We're working on getting some processes put in place. We obviously still have some groundwork to do as we prepare to move into the facility, but we do have plans.
This is a question, I suppose, partly for you, maybe partly for you, but in terms of the recommendations from the city engineer, there's recommendations of an easement being placed over the storm sewer, the gravel drive being abandoned and turned back to grass, if there's no easement, and then also shared use driveway agreement. So I guess a two-fold question. One for you, are these actually recommendations and not commands, I suppose, that must be done? Are they suggestions that this would be a good idea? And then the follow-up question would be, are you planning on following these recommendations that the city engineer has given?
So to answer your first set, they are recommendations, they're not written into ordinance. He just noticed that for clear chain of title and whatnot, if they do come to the point where they do purchase the building, that would clear up easement of title as well as the chain of title. So. And yes, we do plan to follow those recommendations. We've actually already reached out to the owner because it said in there that it would be easier to get that easement lost under the current ownership, and so we've already reached out to him and we will work with him on that before we purchase.
And the driveway agreement? Sorry, and the driveway agreement as well?
Yes. Yep.
I guess in the past, or maybe in the future, or both, yeah. What kind of discussions do you have with residents or visitors about where they should go during the day? What kind of suggestions do you make suggestions?
So, we work closely with the drop-in center, so a lot of our clients will go to the drop-in center during the day. People that have jobs will go to their job. Some of the people that come in, they will, they have friends or a family member that they can hang out with during the day. And then, to be honest, other than that, they're out in the cold, because we have stipulations from the church, to not let people stay in the building all day long. So, but, we have, like if somebody is sick, we will let them stay in the building and rest. That's how we operate.
With this new facility, this programming that's going on during the day will be optional, is that correct? Or will they have to participate in the programming to continue to stay overnight?
Well, I don't think that we've made the clear guidelines yet, but our hope will be that they'll get involved in these programs. Like I said, I don't think we go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as we're working on that, I think one of the guidelines that we can put in there is they're not going to participate in programming, then they do need to go out during the day, whether it be a job or something. It's not something where they can just stay and hang out. Either you're going to participate in programming or you're going to have to go out.
But they would have the option of leaving during the day.
Yeah.
Would it be like they come in and are there for 3 weeks weeks at a time.
Yeah.
So there will be a separate type of registration between overnight staying and daytime services, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes, we would want to separate those records so that we know who's staying for activities, who's leaving. The goal is not to just let them stay there and live there during the day. That's not what we're doing. We are an overnight shelter. That is our goal. It's not to just allow them to come and stay at free will. Obviously, the goal is to move these people forward, and if we're offering programming that can allow that, we hope that they are willing to take that, and if not, then they need to leave during the day and go out.
And my thing is also, so if we have people that are not willing to go through these programs, their stay at Sheridan Warren would probably be limited also. It's, it's like not going to be a 365 night you can come in if you're not making any changes in your life. So it will get tougher. There's no doubt about that. So.
Anything else? Olivia, did you want to say anything about your zoning recommendations?
Based on what they were proposing, I had said that a clinic might be what they were intending. Their memo had clarified that that was not their intentions. I had read in the Michigan Building Code that psychiatric help is also falling under a clinic, so I was unclear, and I was just making suggestions on what they were intending to do. But that was answered in their memo.
I think, any other questions for the applicants? Well, thank you. I don't know, you guys have any thoughts before we take a vote or a motion?
Some thoughts and questions. Olivia, to our packet you attached some definitions from the Michigan Building Code from 2021. Could you explain the relationship of that building code to our city ordinances?
They're not the same, obviously, but a lot of architectural work and engineering work is done based on the Michigan Building Code. I know some of our definitions are verbatim from that document. So based on their classifications of use category that they were pulling from the Michigan Building Code, I was presenting those as well as the other ones around it. That is part of the engineering building code world. They do intertwine a bit, but they aren't verbatim matching. But that was just showing what they were pulling from as reference.
I can make some comments. Much of this will be somewhat aligned with an email that we received from public comment, which I don't have in front of me, but the gist of that email was there's a difficulty with our classification system in zoning. And I think when we look closely at our own code for the city, unfortunately there are elements that don't seem to cover things that we might hope for, or it might say something in one section and then say something that's slightly different in a different section, and that's difficult for us in trying to interpret the code. So I think we do have to look to, okay, what is the point of these business districts and residential districts, and does this fit within that point? Just to give everybody everybody who's listening some examples. In Article 3, Division 8, which is our B3 description, there's no mention in that division of mixed-use uses for B3. But there is, later on in 36.414, mixed use is named as something that can happen in B3 districts. Office space is definitely permitted in B3. R1, our district there, the Michigan Building Code offers some definitions of boarding house and congregant living facilities, which are very helpful, but we don't have those same definitions in our current code. It seems that the overnight shelter, the emergency shelter that's being proposed, would fall under congregate living facilities. We don't have that as a category in our definitions. So I'd love to see our code updated to reflect some of these categories that we don't currently have. In Article 3, Division 2 of R1, it does not mention boarding houses or congregate living facilities. And again, the proposal was a mixed use under B3 between business use and residential usage. However, B3 there is allowed under B3 mixed usage, which includes sometimes residential uses. But then when you look at R1, which is residential uses, it doesn't mention some of these things, even though traditionally this is something that would fall under residential use. I looked at code for Detroit and Grand Rapids, and both of those listed emergency shelters as possible in both business and residential zoning. We don't have emergency shelters as a category anywhere in our code. So if we were going to just look for that term emergency shelter, this would not be permitted anywhere in our city. So I think we have to use some degree of prudence to consider where it might fit given our current code. One more difficult element in the proposal, the letter, find it. This is from Sherwood's application. They propose a mixed-use model per number 1, section 36.292. Well, when we look at 36.292, number 1, this is about B3, and it says any business or service establishment permitted in a B2 central business district as a principal use is permitted. So anything that's used in B2 could happen in B3. But what's the difficulty? We don't have B2 as a category in our code. It doesn't exist. We have something else. It's downtown, I forget what we call it. Now it seems that that used to be B2, but as the code is currently written, no B2 central business district exists. And so that entire part of the statute would not apply. That part of the ordinance would not apply. So I'll end with this, I guess. In the beginning of section 36, which is the part of the ordinance that governs what we do here, not section 36, yeah, section 36. Under definitions, it talks about zoning exceptions versus zoning variances. And their variances would be those things that are directly at odds with the code. And for that, then there would need to be an appeal to a different board, not our own. Offer variances. However, zoning exceptions are things that, according to the code, need to be looked at by somebody other than the zoning administrator. Mr. Smith. I think that means that we can decide on particular exceptions, not as things that are contrary to the code, but we can address things that are not explicitly named in the code, that are left ambiguous by the code, and we can consider, for lack of a better term, the spirit of the code, the letter of the code, and ask, does this fit within what the code is trying to accomplish? Okay, I house out there, and just thoughts.
So if I'm remembering correctly, the Hope Harbor Management Building is a residences on the first floor.
Based on, the structure was essentially a dwelling unit in its structure. It contained by definition all the living essentials in one unit. So based on, I believe it was section 36-293, subsection 12, that any combination of one or more one-family and multiple family dwelling, multiple tenant family units subject to the following requirements and listed. Then in subsection C, dwelling units and accessory buildings related to residential uses shall not, be permitted on the ground floor. And that was the action that you guys took based on that subsection.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
To your question.
Does this have rooms on the residential rooms on the first floor?
By definition, I do not believe that
This
they're.
plan looks like it has beds on the first floor. I'm not sure if it does.
Yeah, it has beds on the first floor. I do not, by definition, believe it would be considered a dwelling unit. So that's up to your guys' interpretation. So, by definition, I do
So
not
you're
believe.
saying that Hope Harbor had dwelling units and this doesn't?
Hope Harbor's entire structure was a dwelling unit because it had the bathroom, the kitchen, living quarters, all in one efficiency apartment type style where there's no doors and rooms distinguishing those rooms from each other. So, based on the International Property Maintenance Code and our other codes that we follow, that is a dwelling unit. And
So for this facility that's proposed, are they considered, not considered dwelling units, you said?
I don't by definition. Just the living quarters are considered sleeping units by definition.
And that's because of some of the layout, but also because they leave every day, or they're supposed to.
Our ordinance doesn't define transient. It is defined in the Michigan Building Code, but I was going solely based on the layout.
Yeah, up until this point, I was thinking solely based on the time. You know, there's a 24-hour stay, or not even 24, I guess it could be a 12-hour stay for 10 days in a row instead of a 6 months or whatever, 2 months stay straight.
That's now we're saying that they're going to have this long-term use of, I don't care about the so-so church, doesn't exist. But the definition apply to the proposed facility.
Yeah, well, that's up to us. Right?
She seems to be saying.
Yeah.
It's not the same as that's what proposed ones are the same as
No, they're not the same.
that's what I was trying to get at.
I don't want to spend too much time trying to distinguish these two issues since this is the one that's at hand, but this one also has offices, business offices that will be operating within the same facility. I don't think previous proposal on that, so that's another distinction, but you guys, we'll get there with this proposal. The request for this one being for mixed use, which will be business residential.
Anything else? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. I guess I'll quickly say, I did want to ask the one question. I mean, if they're maintaining the 24-hour, the overnight only stay. And the reason I asked the one question about if everyone's going to stay was just to see if, essentially, it's what is really going on. You know, it's going to be a 24-hour stay for 2 months, you know, but it sounds like, based on the way things are pushing it, not everyone will be signed up in that same program. So, and that's not exactly the whole question, but that's why I asked that. Is that okay with everyone?
And I will say, and regardless of how this goes, I think it would be wonderful for council to take up the issue of reviewing some of these ordinances for
I'm sorry.
possible amendment to include some of these categories that are no longer, or not yet.
We're already reviewing our ordinances in South Canada, so we need to do that. We're in our own to council.
Oh, yes. Are we reviewing all sections of this?
I mean, it will take some time, but yeah, you guys preliminarily hold that public hearing, offer up the draft language, and then it would be formally
Because
approved by
we
council.
talked about it in January over a 4-year process, 3-year process.
Yeah, however you guys are able to break it up, right, yeah.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, next, whole business, we have some amended bylaw review. The, anyone do any work on this over the last month?
I will admit, I could not remember everything, but I tried to piece it all together.
When I looked at this previously, a few things. For the member composition, number 1, first, must be representative of important segments of the community, such as economic development, social development, city of Hillsdale, and of course, interest in the city of Hillsdale, agriculture, natural resources, recreation, education, etc. I guess my question when I was reading this was, by what mechanism are we securing this must, membership of a commission must be representative of all these things?
Yeah, I guess that's for you guys to decide. That's essentially state code, or the zoning enabling act. That's verbatim what their requirements are. So I guess you could further define that. I just took that from state law and just took out local unit of government.
So that element is something that we have to have in there.
I believe so. If it's a must, shall, whatever those kind of imperative terms.
I bring it up only because it seems like our current process is somebody sends in an application, they're appointed, and they get on board, and there's not really any consideration for this applicant. And sometimes people will list, we've been involved in X, Y, or Z, which is great, but it doesn't seem like we're actually saying,
Yeah, and I
we
guess
already
that-
have too many people in economics and too many people in education. We need somebody for
Right.
social development.
Yeah, and I guess that's more so on the shoulders of the mayor at that point. That might just be state code overseeing that whole process, and that might be something that might be more important in ordinance or for the mayor to consider more so than our bylaws. Yes.
Yeah, when I first read this section, I thought maybe it would make sense, but in lieu of doing that, I wonder if best course of action is just adding just a line about like this is not at the mayor's discretion. That's how we do it now, right?
I've been in favor of that. For B2, maybe we discussed this previously, I don't remember, but right now it says not less than 6 members of the commission must be qualified electors. Why isn't it 7? 7 people on the board.
I think, again, that's covered by the zoning enabling act. I tried to follow both recommendations from MSUE, who governs a lot of zoning education, and then I would also pull up the zoning enabling act. So I can verify that, but I believe that was something we have the option based on population, but then I think that's the minimum.
So we could make it more restrictive if we wanted. Let's say minimum is 6.
I'll have to look at verbatim what that says. That's something we can consider.
If we could, I'd be in favor of amending that to be all 7. Something else I noticed was in 1A, when this was set up, this commission, at first people were appointed to 1 or 2 year terms, and then after that people were appointed to 3 year terms. The idea being, outside of the number who's on the commission, ex officio, 2 people rotate off every year. Our current setup, I don't know when it got misaligned, I believe we have 3 people whose good term expire in this November. And then there's 1 person maybe 2 years from now and 2 people further from then. I don't know if we need to put this into code, but it would be nice to realign our term lengths or our term start and end dates so that we have 1/3 cycle on or off.
One problem with that is that for example, Penny resigned. What, did you resign or did you just not take up the next?
I had to resign because I was on another board for some reason. There was a conflict.
What I'm saying is that some people resigned in term.
Yeah, there was a conflict.
But then the person who takes up that term should serve out the length of that term. Just like if a senator dies in office, he's appointed for the length of that term. So if we, I don't know the best way of doing that. If we need to put that into our bylaws, maybe that would be a good thing. Because
I think that was how it's intended, so I'm not sure how it got off. That might just be administrative procedure or whatever.
I mean, do you think that we need to put it into our bylaws?
Is that not how
I think
Section
it
A
reads that way.
reads? Yeah.
I think it reads that way.
Unless you want it clarified, but I think
If a vacancy occurs, the vacancy must be filled for the unexpired term in the same manner as provided for an original appointment.
yeah, again, I think this might be state code, so I'm sure we can clarify beyond that if that's not what you're intending.
I think that is what was intended when they wrote this, but our practice is falling away from that, so we need to, I would like us to figure out some way to come back into alignment with the way this was written.
One question I had was, is the ex officio membership also a state law? That's state law?
It's not a requirement, but they are able to be appointed. I believe it's the mayor himself, herself, city manager, and a city council member.
And so, right now it's a practice just to have the city council member.
Yeah, I mean, I believe the mayor can appoint themselves and then whoever they see fit to. I don't know, I don't have it pulled up, I should have, but I don't believe it's a requirement, yeah.
Anything else? Should we just move on? Yeah. Okay, so no new business today. Staff report, Olivia, if you have anything?
I don't have anything at this time. I believe, I'm not sure if it got into the packet this time, but our second quarter two zoning and code enforcement report should be coming to council soon. I drafted most of it. I'm not sure if it got into the timeline that KB needs, but it should be coming to council soon.
Okay, I'll open the podium again for general public comment.
James Benjamin Galloway, again, I will offer some generally public comment, I guess. I did send out a couple emails earlier today. I hope they reached your inboxes. One was about classifications. And now that this has passed, the 183 property, share the warmth in the B3 business district, it does kind of set a precedent. I do believe the council still has to pass it, but it's going to be imperative now to be able to clarify the boundary between occupancy and housing. And you asked very good questions, and you were on the right track. Not only is the dwelling defined the way she defined it in the building code, but the distinction between the shared warmth and perhaps other facilities that are trying to do transitional housing is that you can have all your stuff there and your worldly things, and you can stay throughout the day. And share the warmth, you bring one bag, you check your bag, you change into pajamas, and then maybe get a shower and do your laundry. You leave in the morning, you take your bag with you, and it's not a residency, it's a transient occupancy, much like a hotel. Come back the next day, you know, whether you're drunk or whatnot, you sign in again, you check in again. You don't check in once for 2 weeks. It's a daily cycling. So it's not housing, it's kind of an occupancy, right? So that distinction, as it occurs to me in my analysis and research, is what allows them to operate in a B3, whereas it becomes more difficult to justify housing uses in B3, which is what needs clarified perhaps now moving forward. And I've personally done some extensive analysis on this that I'd be happy to share. I couldn't find anybody's emails on the website except for Mr. Morrissey's. But if I could collect some of those who are maybe perhaps most curious about my work, I'd love to get in contact with us so I can share some of my findings to help clarify the issues at hand and how to clarify the ordinances such that if somebody comes in with a proposed use case, you can slot it into this spectrum. You know, homeless shelter is an ultra compressed term that represents a huge spectrum of potential use cases that could span the whole city, whether it's residential or office or business, or there's ordinance does accommodate all the use cases, but it's kind of scattered and ambiguous, and you do have to make value decisions. Sometimes laws are written so that you can have the interpretive flexibility to make value decisions. Sometimes it needs to be made more explicit so it's less confusing. And I think that's where we're at now, but I think you did make the right decision about shared warmth. Thank you.
James Edward Thomas, couple of things. I'm pretty sure B3 expressly prohibits dormitory style living. I think that's one of the reasons you rejected Hope Harbor's plan. My opinion is you got to the right place, but you didn't take enough steps. I think you should have rejected today. You should have had them come back for a special use permit or something of that nature to really CYA yourselves with a lawsuit that just got dropped maybe, 5 days ago, 10 days ago. And I think that really would have been the more prudent course. Just my opinion. That's all I'm doing, sharing my opinion. General public comment. My other opinion is that when you make it easier to live a certain style of lifestyle, you basically condone that lifestyle through making it easier. Whether you're doing it, expressly condoning that lifestyle, or you're just kind of indirectly condoning that lifestyle, you are condoning it. And the chief said there were about 88 unhoused people when he came up here and spoke, Chief Hebner, maybe a year and a half ago when they were talking about this. You've now just okayed a plan for 210 to 220 beds. The beds will fill themselves. People seeking that lifestyle will move to this community to continue that lifestyle. Again, I think you got to the right place. I think that their plan was professionally put together, unlike Hope Harbor's plan. I think that they should have gotten where they got today, but I do believe to CYA, you should have made it take a couple more steps. Thank you for your time.
All right, seeing no other public comment, we'll move on to commissioner comment. Anyone has it? I'll just ask Olivia, master plan update. Just review steps we have to go through that and when.
Yeah, I'll need to look at state law for the amendment process. I don't remember off the top of my head, but we do need to get that started to be in compliance with the 5-year review. You had decided at a previous meeting that it didn't need to be a full-blown rewrite, so I'll look at the amendment portion and then we'll probably have it at some of these meetings.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?